Welcome back, everybody. This is our second episode of Tesh on Tap. We're talking with Danielle Royston, DR, the crazy cloud girl in Telco. And we are drinking our beers here.
Our beers.
and you know, I wanted to get into a story, actually a funny story in the telco industry, right? About, and an interesting one about the previous company you were at.
Yeah, so I guess this is like, I did too good of a job. That's like the moral of the story.
It's the, you know, the whole, like, you know, do a good enough job to where you're not, you don't need to be there anymore, right? You've hired your replacement.
Well, I mean, so I took over a publicly traded company. I'd never been a public CEO. I probably will never be a public CEO. It's I don't know why this is anyone's dream. It was awful, to be honest. I hated every minute of it. But this company was publicly traded, and when I took it over, it was on the verge of bankruptcy. And so I started, it's going to tie into my tennis, right? Which is, I'm kind of like a really good defense player. Like, I love it when my back is against the wall. I'm kind of fighting, you know, I'm like Rocky, right?
We'll just call out here quickly. You're a nationally ranked tennis player right now still too.
I'm actually ranked in the world.
Yeah. So we'll get back to that later, because there's more to talk on tennis.
Yes, but I'm a nationally ranked tennis player as a 50-year-old woman. Right, like some men go through a midlife crisis and buy a Porsche. I try to get ranked high. So I took over this company. It was on the verge of bankruptcy. It was about $150 million of revenue, shrinking about 25% a year. I raised $155 million in the first year. Have to pay off a loan so that the bank wouldn't like put us into bankruptcy, and then have to restructure the company. Once I raised in that first year, I cut about $100 million of cost out of everything. We went remote. I released a lot of people. I took a 1,600 person company and released 1,500 people and hired 400 new people. Which is crazy. That's in a year, that's insane.
Yeah.
That's freaking insane.
Yeah.
And took a company that was like on the verge of death and made it like massively cash flow positive. And then took that cash flow and invested it in our future. And my insight for this company was that, it was like, the only reason I was like successful is because this company was really like acting like companies used to see in like 1999. Like, everything was on-premise, perpetual, old school bare metal software. And I'm like, have you guys heard of the cloud? Like, it might be something that
mid 2000s, like it's been a little while.
Like, you may have heard of like AWS, is that like part of your vocabulary? And everyone was like, no, you can't talk about that. Like, they'll never, our customers will never go to the public cloud. I'm like, never, ever. And so I started talking to customers, and they were like, totally we'll go to the public cloud. I'm like, okay, am I insane? And so took all of our profit and put it into our product and built a super awesome, kick-ass, public cloud native product. I had 3 investors. One was the largest investor was Joe Lemont, who we know from Trilogy.
Yep.
A great team, super awesome. Not only just investors in money, they kind of act like PE, but also super awesome operators. And that was great. And then my second and third investor, one was a hedge fund in Toronto, and one was like a mutual fund. Mm-hmm. And I tried really hard to be very honest about how long it was going to take, how much money it was going to cost, that we'd have to like do a lot of like free proof of concepts before we really see big money, money and revenue growth, just because telco moves very slowly. They're very risk averse. This was a new technology. They think that they really need to hug their servers, and they want one throat to choke. And we were asking them to like let go of all that. And so the change was massive and huge. And no one takes a bankrupt company, pivots it for the cloud, and builds a unicorn. Like,
yep,
that's freaking insane. And that's basically what I was trying to do. And so I guess I was too positive, or I mean, they were like, "You're sandbagging." I'm like, "I'm totally not. I promise you, I'm not sandbagging. Like, I'm trying to be just like honest." But they started an activist fight. Like the worst part of a public
after you've
company.
done all this stuff for the public company, completely turned it around.
Yeah, I mean, cut all this cost, and they're like, we want a seat at the table. We don't trust ESW.
Because the mic drop was the end, your letter, right? At the end. That's how I found out about it.
My letter.
Oh, the
Which
letter
letter?
there was a letter to the board where it, right? Wasn't there?
That was in the end. That was the letter, not from me, from ESW to the board.
Right. Yeah.
That was like, P.S. You guys suck.
Yeah. So that was the letter that
I mean, it was. Yes, that was in February. I didn't quit until like June 30th, right? But I actually quit over compensation, right? Like of all things to quit over. The girl who used to be in HR, who knows compensation, who fights to pay everyone equally, gets fired, right? Because they can't, like, right? It was freaking insane. No, I mean, the real reason I quit was that when you have activists in your startup, right? Because that's really what it was. Right. Imagine at the Zebra, if people came in and were fighting over anything, it completely stops all progress. And you were talking about the ruthless prioritization that a startup needs. Then you can't get decisions made and you're publicly traded. It just stopped us dead in our tracks.
It just grinds to a halt.
My compensation, I was underpaid, provably underpaid. My compensation is publicly available, and you can benchmark it against any SaaS company CEO. Was probably 50% underpaid. And to have activists come in and basically stop all progress, I mean, it was like a career challenge for me. I'm like, the longer I stay, the more this is going down, and now's the time to get out. So
well, kudos to you for standing up for yourself and for turning the company around, right? Like,
no, it was. I mean, I'm like, this should be the cover of Forbes. But is it because I'm a girl? Is it because I'm an American girl running a Canadian company?
Yep.
No one knows the story. I mean, I cut, our revenue was coming down it was like 120 the year that I cut all the costs. I cut $100 million of costs on a 120 base.
Yeah.
Show me anyone who's done that.
No, that's
show me anyone.
Phenomenal.
It was insane.
Kudos
and
to you.
I didn't have a mutiny. I didn't have backlash, right? Yeah. Glassdoor didn't go on fire. I didn't have articles. Like, it was amazing. So it was a career high. Just unfortunately ended when people were like, fighting over a board seat, I guess.
Yeah. So anyone in Telco, if you're watching this, make sure you speak to DR, because she knows what she's talking about.
Totally. Yeah. No, I mean, I have a podcast now. It's called Telco in 20. It's about 20 minutes long. I have a newsletter. But I, usually without Corona, I'd be flying around the world. Like, I fly around the world a lot and just meet with people and talk about cloud. And I'm super passionate about it. I think this is going to be like my last job, is going to be convincing Telco to move to the public cloud. And I'm psyched. I love it.
It's a great ambition. And if there's anyone that can do it, I think you can.
It's me. Awesome. I'm ruthless. Relentless.
Awesome. So let's quickly touch on tennis here, because I know it's it's a passion of yours for a long time, and it's become one of mine because both my kids play. Right, I have a lot of friends, but my older son in particular is
really good,
very competitive. And so we have a number of contacts and friends in tennis. And so how did you get into it? How do you still keep doing it? Like, how is it such a big passion for you?
I started really late. I started around 11 or 12. I was nationally ranked as a kid, not super high, like 50, I think was my best. I got into Stanford, and Stanford has one of the best women's tennis team. I did not have a scholarship. I didn't even play my freshman year. I ended up walking onto the team, and it was a really great experience, but I wasn't like top 6 or whatever else. And then after I graduated, I stopped playing tennis. I was kind of burnt out. I've been playing for about 10 years and went to Trilogy, which was like, we worked 100-hour weeks.
Hours a week. Yeah, no joke.
No joke. We worked our asses off, and my whole life was Trilogy, and And then I got married, and then I had kids, and there was no time for tennis. The truth of the matter is that, like, sort of restarted my tennis career was the fact that we did not have a pool in our backyard, and we were like our house had like a slope, and so we couldn't really build a pool. So we joined a club for the pool, but it had access to tennis, and I was like, well, it's not that much more money to join as a tennis member, so let's do that. And so, it was like November, December, and you're writing the checks for the dues, and no one's using the club, and I'm like, all right, fine,
I'll go play
tennis. I wanted to get back into it. Let's go play. But when you've ever competed in anything intensely as a kid, it's very difficult to socially, casually play that sport.
Oh, I played competitive ultimate frisbee for 20 years. I stopped playing at the end of 2014, and I can't bring myself to go out and casually play it. I can't, my knees can't handle it anymore, but like I can't half-ass it. It's just
you're like, okay, what's the league? How do you win? How do we get ranked? What's the next level? And that was me with tennis. And so I was like, well, how do I get ranked in Texas? And then that was really easy. And I was like, okay, well, how do you get ranked in the United States? And I'm like, okay, that was like my first year, I think I was 27th in the country. And then I was 15th. And then I was like 8th. And then this year's weird because of coronavirus, but the last like sort of real ranking, I was 2nd in the country. It's a great stress reliever, right? Just to get out there and just, when I'm really mad, just to smack a ball. I like putting myself in pressure situations. And like Billie Jean King always says, pressure is a privilege, and it applies to business, right? It's a privilege to have the pressure to perform in business. Right, the zebra is growing. Right, you guys have pressure to perform, and that's a privilege. Right, not a lot of businesses can put themselves in that position, and you guys have done that, and that's amazing. So
thank you. And I love that you tied it back into business and sports, because my personal philosophy, the leadership books that I love are sports leadership books, because I think the lessons they're tantamount to building a team, right? Building a team. And growing a team.
We are work athletes.
Yes.
We're athletes, right? Work leads. I don't know if I can coin that, but it is about performance, right? Figuring out, when do I work best? How do I turn in a really awesome performance? You're trying to field an awesome team, and, it's not a family, right? And so you're like, if someone's not cutting the mustard and not, doing what you need them to do, you need to like hire a new person, and no hard feelings. And that's kind of where I am. I love people that I meet that are athletes, because they kind of get it. They kind of get like, this is for the greater good, and this is for the team. And if you're going to put me on the bench, put me on the bench.
Awesome.
Or put me in.
Well, with that, I want to thank everyone for listening. We've been talking with Danielle Royston, DR, crazy cloud girl in Telco. And
crazy girl.
Our second episode of Tesh on Tap. Please be sure to grab your beers, take a listen. Check out DR on Twitter at Telco DR. Check out the Zebra at the Zebra Co. And come back for more episodes of Tesh on Tap as we talk with a number of other leaders. Maybe we'll get to speak with some of the people that we've referred to.
Thanks for having me. This was super fun. I loved it. The beer angle approved.
Absolutely.
I did it for the beer.